There is a sacred hour in every life, a span of time when the lights go dim, the outer noise falls away, and the conscious mind slowly surrenders its grip on the day's events. It is here, in the velvet darkness between wakefulness and sleep, that the true drama of your healing is decided. The body may lie in stillness upon the bed, but within, the mind is a great and fertile field where unseen seeds are being planted. Every night, without fail, the soil of your subconscious receives the imprints of your last thoughts, the echoes of your final words, the emotional tone you carry as you drift into slumber. You may not have been aware, but you have been whispering to yourself every night of your life, sometimes in words, sometimes in silent feelings, and your body has been faithfully obeying those instructions. In this hidden battlefield, there is no neutral ground. The mind is always sowing something, either the seeds of health, restoration, and divine order, or the weeds of fear, fatigue, and disorder. Just as a gardener cannot expect roses to bloom from thistles, you cannot expect radiant health to spring from a mental atmosphere clouded by resentment or despair. The subconscious, like the soil, is impartial. It brings forth in kind whatever is placed within it. If you have been lying down with the weight of the day's worries pressing upon your chest, if you have carried into sleep a quiet dread of tomorrow's challenges, then you have unknowingly given your subconscious the blueprint for decay rather than renewal. But here lies the holy promise. You can choose what you plant tonight. The scriptures tell us, "Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, for the night is not meant to be a terror at all, but a temple." It is in the secret place of the Most High, when the gates of the conscious mind are unguarded, that the infinite healing presence can move most freely. When you enter that temple with a clear, faith-filled intention, the very power that made the body begins to remake it. This is why the hours before sleep are not to be wasted. They are the golden hours of subconscious impress. Think of your mind in those moments as a night gardener, lantern in hand, tending the soil with great care. Each whispered word is a seed. Each image you form is a drop of water. Each feeling of gratitude or peace is the sunlight that ensures the seed will awaken. The gardener does not question the soil or dig up the seeds to check their progress. Plants, blesses and rests, knowing the law of life will do the rest. In the same way, your whispered healing words, spoken with quiet assurance before sleep, are taken in by the subconscious and set to work through every nerve, tissue, and cell. This is why the hidden nighttime battlefield is not a place to fear, but a place to claim. It is where the victory of your healing is won, before the first light of dawn. And if you will approach this battlefield not with weapons of anxiety, but with the sword of truth and the shield of faith, you will awaken to find that the infinite has been working on your behalf while you slept. Tonight you are not merely going to bed, you are entering the holy ground where God's life will be sown into every cell you possess. Affirmation to carry forward. As I rest, the infinite healing presence works through me in secret, restoring me to perfect health. Why is it that your cells seem to echo the deepest convictions of your heart? It is because the body, in all its complexity and wonder, is not some detached machine merely reacting to diet or exercise, but a living mirror of the unseen patterns you hold within your subconscious mind. Every cell is a listener, a receiver of the silent broadcast you transmit through your thoughts and feelings, and whether you realize it or not, you have been sending those broadcasts without pause since the hour you were born. The ancient teachers spoke of the heart as the seat of belief, not because they referred to the physical organ alone, but because they understood that the core of your being, the subconscious, governs the harmony or discord of your entire organism. When you believe deeply, with feeling and certainty, that you are whole, strong, and divinely guided, your cells receive that instruction as a living law, and they respond by arranging themselves into patterns of vitality. When, however, you believe that you are frail, burdened, or doomed to decline, the cells obey with the same loyalty, and the body manifests the blueprint it has been given. This truth is both humbling and liberating. It humbles us because it removes every illusion that our suffering is entirely external, forced upon us by cruel chance or fate. It liberates us because it declares that the key to transformation lies not in rearranging the outer world, but in reshaping the inner image we hold of ourselves. The philosopher might say that the body is but the shadow of the mind upon the screen of matter, and if the shadow displeases us, we must adjust the object that casts it. Joseph Murphy taught that every thought is a kind of biochemical command, altering the very chemistry of the blood, the balance of the hormones, the rhythm of the heart. Science has confirmed what the sages intuited, that emotions and beliefs trigger cascades of signals to every part of the body, opening or closing the pathways of healing according to their quality. Fear tightens, gratitude expands, resentment contracts, love nourishes. Imagine for a moment that your cells are like a vast choir, millions of tiny voices singing the song you have given them. If your inner song is one of faith, joy, and divine confidence, the harmony that results floods your being with life. But if your song is one of doubt, bitterness, and despair, the harmony becomes a discord that drains your strength and clouds your mind. The wondrous part is that the choir is ready to change its tune at your command. It does not cling to the past, it responds to the present note you strike. This is why the nightly whisper, spoken in the drowsy stillness before sleep, is so potent it sets the key for the entire orchestra of your body, ensuring that as you sleep, your cells sing only of wholeness, order, and peace. When you grasp this, you no longer see your body as an enemy to be fought or a stubborn machine to be fixed. You see it as an obedient servant of the greater law of mind, eager to carry out whatever instructions you choose to give it. This shifts the whole approach to healing. No longer do you plead with the body to improve. Instead, you speak directly to the subconscious, knowing that it will transmit the message to every fiber of your being. You do not berate the cells. For their current state, you inspire them with a vision of what they are meant to be. This is the art of spiritual healing. To impress the subconscious with the image of perfection so clearly and so lovingly that the body cannot help but reflect it. And tonight, as you prepare to whisper life-giving words into the silence, remember that every syllable will be carried to the farthest reaches of your being, where each cell waits to take up the command and weave it into the fabric of your health. Affirmation to carry forward. The life of God flows through every cell of my being, restoring me to the pattern of perfect health now. Before you can consciously direct the healing life of God within you, you must become aware of the quiet enemies that have perhaps for years been slipping unnoticed into the soil of your subconscious, sowing seeds that grow into the weeds of disorder. These four saboteurs, fear, guilt, resentment, and self-pity, are not mere passing moods. They are deeply ingrained patterns of feeling and thought that seep into the very bloodstream of your mind. Fear is the first and perhaps the most insidious, for it is a form of inverted faith. It is faith in calamity rather than in divine order. Fear whispers its poisonous suggestions into the night. What if I do not recover? What if tomorrow brings bad news? What if my strength fails me? And because the subconscious is as obedient to the seeds of fear as it is to the seeds of faith, these questions, unanswered and unchecked, set into motion currents of anxiety that weaken the vital forces. Then comes guilt, a subtle tyrant that convinces you that you are unworthy of health, joy, or peace. It dredges up old mistakes, magnifies them, and holds them before your inner eye as though to say, "See, this is why you must suffer." Yet the law of the subconscious is not punitive, it is creative. It will not hold you hostage to the past unless you instruct it to do so through repeated remorse without release. Forgiveness, both of yourself and others, is the cleansing river that washes this stain from the mind. But until you let that river flow, guilt will continue to leach vitality from every cell, binding the body to an invisible weight. Resentment, the third saboteur, is like drinking poison and expecting another to perish. When you harbor bitterness towards someone, whether the offense was great or small, you keep that person alive in your mind, not as they are in truth, but as the embodiment of your grievance. This image, replayed in the theater of your subconscious, keeps your emotional state inflamed and your body tense. Cells that live in an atmosphere of chronic tension cannot function in their divine pattern. They become like soldiers forever on high alert, draining the resources meant for healing. To release resentment is to free yourself from a prison you built with your own thoughts, allowing the light of divine love to flood into the places where darkness once held sway. And finally, there is self-pity, the quiet, self-defeating voice that says, "Why has this happened to me? No one understands what I'm going through. My lot is harder than anyone else's." Self-pity turns your gaze inward, but not toward the infinite. Rather, it fixes your attention on the image of yourself as a victim, powerless and alone. This image, held long enough, is impressed upon the subconscious, which then obligingly arranges circumstances to match it. Self-pity is dangerous because it feels almost comforting. It offers the illusion of justification for one's state, yet it binds you more tightly to the very condition you long to escape. Picture these four saboteurs as drops of poisoned ink falling into a clear stream. At first, the change is barely visible, but over time the entire current is tainted. The water no longer nourishes the life around it. Instead, it carries subtle toxins wherever it flows. In the same way, these patterns, if left unchallenged, discolor the life force moving through your body, influencing every organ and function. The good news, the liberating truth, is that the stream can be cleansed, the ink dispersed, and the water restored to purity. The nightly whisper you will learn is not merely an affirmation, it is the antidote to these poisons, a divine medicine administered in the most receptive hours of the night when the subconscious listens most closely. By replacing fear with faith, guilt with forgiveness, resentment with love, and self-pity with gratitude, you open the sluice gates of healing and allow the river of divine life to flow unimpeded through every cell. Affirmation to carry forward. I now release all fear, guilt, resentment, and self-pity. The love and life of God flow freely through me, cleansing and restoring every part of my being. Let me draw your attention to a story, one I have seen repeated in countless variations throughout the years, a story that reveals with clarity how even the most earnest desire for healing can be quietly sabotaged by the hidden contradictions lodged within the mind. There was a man, let us call him Daniel, whose body had been burdened for months by a stubborn ailment. He sought treatments, he followed regimens, he recited affirmations he had found in books, yet his condition persisted with a disheartening stubbornness. He came to me one evening, weary in both body and spirit, and said, "I speak the words of healing, but nothing changes." I listened as he repeated for me his nightly practice, "I am healthy, I am strong." The words were fine enough, but as he spoke them, I could hear in the tone of his voice a tremor of disbelief, a faint undertone that contradicted the very content of his speech. When I asked him what thoughts filled his mind after those affirmations, he admitted that almost without fail, after closing his eyes, he would begin to wonder if perhaps the doctors had been right, if perhaps his condition was beyond reversal, if perhaps his affirmations were merely an exercise in self-deception. Here was the root of the trouble. His conscious mind was planting seeds of health, but moments later it was scattering seeds of doubt into the same soil. The subconscious, faithful and impartial servant that it is, received both seeds and began to grow them side by side, creating a tangled, contradictory harvest. Imagine a farmer who sows rows of wheat one day, only to scatter thistle seed among them. The next, could he expect a pure crop? Could he be surprised when both emerged together, choking one another? Daniel's healing began not with a stronger affirmation, but with a purer one that his subconscious could accept without resistance. Instead of declaring, "I am perfectly healthy," which clashed violently with the sensory evidence and triggered his inner cynic, I guided him to adopt a phrase that was both truthful to his present faith and expansive enough to lead him toward complete restoration. "The healing life of God is flowing through me now, and every day I grow stronger." This wording sidestepped the resistance of his conscious mind, allowing the subconscious to accept it as possible, even natural. I instructed him to speak it slowly, in a whisper, just before sleep, feeling the truth of each word as if he were releasing it like a dove into the sanctuary of the night. The first nights brought a subtle shift. He found himself sleeping more soundly, waking with a faint but noticeable increase in vitality. Encouraged, he continued, and with each passing week, the whisper became not just a phrase, but a felt reality. His doubt no longer leapt to contradict him. Instead, he found his mind quietly affirming the possibility, then the likelihood, and finally the certainty of his full recovery. Within 3 months, the ailment that had resisted all his prior efforts had faded into memory, not because of some external miracle, but because the inner contradiction had been dissolved, and the subconscious was free to carry out its perfect work. The lesson is plain and profound. The subconscious does not respond to the words alone, but to the belief they carry. When the belief is divided, when the lips speak one thing but the heart feels another, the result is delay, confusion, and stagnation. But when the words and the inner feeling are in harmony, even if they begin in modest agreement rather than grand declarations, the creative power within you moves without obstruction toward the fulfillment of your desire. Your nightly whisper then must be chosen not for how grand it sounds to the conscious ear, but for how wholly it can be accepted by the silent depths of your mind. Affirmation to carry forward. The healing life of God is flowing through me now, and I rest in the certainty of its perfect work. Before you enter into the sacred work of whispering life into your being, you must learn the value of closing the gate of doubt before you lie down to sleep. Doubt is a thief that slips silently into the temple of the subconscious, scattering the treasures you have laid upon its altar. Even a brief moment of anxious speculation. Will this really work? What if my condition worsens overnight? What if I am fooling myself? Can act like a gust of wind that scatters the seeds you have so carefully sown. This is why the hours before sleep must be treated as holy ground, a time of intentional cleansing and preparation, not only of the body but of the mind. If you allow the mental debris of the day, arguments, worries, disappointments trail behind you into bed, you will be attempting to plant new seeds in a soil already littered with thorns. The closing of the gate is both a symbolic and a practical act. I often recommend to my students the simple but powerful ritual of pre-sleep journaling, not as a diary of complaints, but as a conscious release of all mental burdens. Before you lower yourself into the cradle of rest, take a few minutes to write down every lingering worry, every unresolved problem, every scrap of doubt that tugs at your mind. Do not analyze them. Do not judge them. Simply lay them upon the page as if you were placing them into the hands of the infinite. When you have finished, close the journal, and with that action, declare silently or aloud, "These matters are now given over to the infinite intelligence within me. They are no longer mine to carry." In that moment you have shut the gates. The clamor of the day is left outside. Only the calm certainty of your healing purpose is allowed to pass through into the sanctuary of your sleep. This act is not mere sentiment, it is the deliberate conditioning of the subconscious. The mind responds to closure, to symbolic acts that mark an end to one phase and a beginning to another. When you perform this ritual night after night, you train your subconscious to recognize the boundary between the waking world of effort and the sleeping world of reception. You signal to yourself that you are stepping away from the noise and into the quiet chamber where the voice of God speaks in whispers. And in that chamber, the only words permitted are those that align with health, peace, and divine order. When the gate is closed, you can speak your healing whisper with undivided attention and pure receptivity. No stray thought can wander in to contradict you. No lingering shadow can dim the light you have kindled. Your subconscious, free of conflicting instructions, takes hold of the whispered truth and carries it deep into the unseen places where the blueprint of your body resides. There it begins its quiet labor, cell by cell, organ by organ, weaving the pattern of wholeness through the fabric of your being. And when morning comes, you rise not merely rested but subtly remade, for the night has done its perfect work. Affirmation to carry forward. I close the gate of doubt and open the way for the infinite healing presence to renew me through the night. The law of belief is the invisible architecture upon which your entire life rests, a structure so constant and unyielding that it operates whether you acknowledge it or not. It is written in the ancient record, "According to your faith be it done unto you, not according to your wishes, nor your fleeting hopes, nor the desperate pleas you may scatter in moments of crisis, but according to the deep-seated conviction that lives quietly in the chamber of your heart." Faith, as Joseph Murphy so often declared, is not a fragile hope tossed about by circumstance. It is the calm certainty that the thing you have accepted as true in your subconscious must, by law, be made manifest in your world. This is why some prayers seem to go unanswered, not because God withholds, but because the mind has not yet truly received the answer as already given. To grasp the law of belief is to understand that you are always praying, for your dominant mental atmosphere is itself a constant petition to the infinite. If, night after night, you lie down with the unspoken assumption that your ailment is stronger than the life within you, then that belief becomes your prayer, and the subconscious, faithful to its nature, will seek to express it. Conversely, if you go to sleep with the quiet, inner knowing that the divine presence is now at work, renewing every cell, then that becomes your prayer, and the subconscious will set about weaving that reality through the unseen processes of your body. The law does not discriminate between belief in sickness and belief in health. It will bring forth whichever seed is planted with the greater feeling and certainty. Here is where the whisper before sleep finds its incomparable power. It is not a vain repetition of words, but a deliberate planting of belief in the most fertile soil of the mind. In the drowsy threshold between wakefulness and sleep, the conscious mind relaxes its vigilant gatekeeping, and the suggestion, wrapped in the warmth of feeling, passes unchallenged into the subconscious. What you whisper in that moment is not argued with, not doubted. It is taken in as fact. And once accepted, the law of belief begins to work upon it in silence, just as the seed in the earth is transformed by the invisible hand of life into a blade, a stalk, a harvest. But understand this: you cannot plant a seed in the evening and dig it up in the morning to see if it has sprouted. That is not faith. That is suspicion disguised as prudence. The gardener plants and rests, knowing that the same life that quickens the seed quickens all living things. In the same way, you must plant your healing whisper and then rest in the assurance that it is already germinating in the unseen. To believe is to release. To release is to trust. And to trust is to align yourself with the eternal law that shapes worlds and heals bodies. Every time you whisper before sleep, you are adding another layer of certainty to the structure of your faith, and in time the edifice becomes so solid that no wind of circumstance can topple it. Affirmation to carry forward. I believe in the healing life of God within me, and according to my faith, it is done unto me. The subconscious mind, that silent partner in all your affairs, is the most devoted servant you will ever know. It neither slumbers nor grows weary. It does not question the nature of the orders you give it, nor does it hesitate to execute them to the fullest of its ability. In the language of Scripture, it is the Lord to whom you give command, for the Lord in ancient metaphor signifies that inner, unseen intelligence that governs the whole of your being. Your conscious mind is the captain, standing at the helm, scanning the horizon, making decisions. Your subconscious is the crew, tirelessly obeying the captain's instructions, steering the ship of your body and life according to the course set before it. If the captain issues a chart toward a safe harbor, the crew adjusts every sail, every rope, every movement of the rudder to get there. But if the captain's orders are contradictory, sailing east one moment, west the next, the crew will obey each in turn, leaving the vessel adrift in confusion. This is why the words you speak, and more importantly, the images and feelings you dwell upon, are of such consequence. The subconscious does not respond merely to the surface chatter of the conscious mind. It listens to the tone, the feeling, the persistent undercurrent that runs beneath the words. You may say aloud, "I am well," but if the dominant inner feeling is one of frailty or dread, the subconscious hears the feeling as the true instruction and shapes your body accordingly. Conversely, You may utter a simple phrase, "The healing life of God flows through me now," and if it is spoken with the full weight of conviction and the warmth of gratitude, the subconscious receives it as a binding command and sets in motion the subtle adjustments and restorations required to bring it into visible form. Imagine a ship's captain who understands the loyalty of his crew. He would not shout panicked orders into the wind, knowing that such fear would only unsettle the hands at work. He would speak clearly, calmly, with authority born of knowledge. In the same way, you must speak to your subconscious not as a tyrant cracking a whip, but as a wise commander who knows that the crew's trust is gained through steady leadership. Before sleep, when the conscious mind is lowering its watch and the subconscious is most receptive, your whispered words act as the captain's final orders for the night. They will be carried out in the dark while you dream, until the light of dawn finds you closer to the harbor of health you have chosen. The connection between this ancient metaphor and the biblical phrase, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart," becomes luminous when you realize that to trust in the Lord is to trust in the power and obedience of your own subconscious when it is aligned with divine truth. It is to know that once you have given a clear, loving, and confident instruction, the inner crew will labor without ceasing until the work is done. And the harbor you seek, be it radiant health, perfect peace, or renewed vitality, is already mapped within the infinite intelligence that guides both captain and crew. Affirmation to carry forward. My subconscious is my faithful servant, carrying out the divine blueprint of perfect health in me now. Words are not idle things. They are living seeds charged with the power to reproduce after their own kind. The ancients knew this when they declared, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us," for they understood that the invisible utterance, once impressed upon the receptive substance of the subconscious, will inevitably take form in the visible realm. When you whisper a phrase in the stillness before sleep, you are not merely speaking into empty air, you are casting a seed into the deepest soil of your being, a soil that never refuses to bring forth what is sown. But as every gardener knows, the seed needs more than the act of planting. It requires the nourishment of water, the warmth of sunlight, and the patient faith that life will stir unseen before it breaks the surface. In this holy analogy, your whispered word is the seed, your steady repetition is the watering, and your emotional toned feeling of certainty, gratitude, or joyous, the sunlight that quickens the seed into life. The subconscious is not swayed by hurried speech or mechanical recitation. It opens to receive when the words are clothed in feeling. This is why the gentle, rhythmic cadence of a whisper is so effective. It bypasses the chatter of the conscious mind and speaks directly to the inner ear of the soul. It is the difference between barking orders at a frightened servant and tenderly instructing a trusted friend. The latter produces cooperation. The former provokes resistance. I tell you, the whisper before sleep is like laying a sacred offering upon the altar in the temple of your inner life. You do not slam it down with impatience, nor do you mutter it without attention. You place it there with reverence, knowing that it will be received by the presence that dwells within. And when the subconscious takes that word into itself, it sets to work immediately, summoning resources, rearranging conditions, even influencing the chemical symphony within your blood, so that every cell begins to align with the pattern you have declared. Over time, the repeated sowing of this living word builds a momentum that cannot be stopped, and the manifestation becomes as certain as the sunrise. Yet, let us be clear, the creative process is not moved by noise, but by consistency and depth. A single whispered affirmation, spoken once and forgotten, is like a lone seed scattered on stony ground. But a phrase repeated nightly with sincerity and unwavering expectation takes root deep in the subconscious. And because the subconscious must express what it accepts as true, the day will come when the outer world reflects that inner acceptance, and your body will show forth the health you have been planting in thought. Affirmation to carry forward. Every word I speak before sleep is a living seed, and the garden of my body brings forth its harvest in perfect health. There is a threshold, a moment of holy transition, when the conscious mind begins to loosen its grip on the reins of thought, and the deeper currents of the subconscious rise to the surface. This is the drowsy state, that sacred twilight between wakefulness and sleep, where the ordinary chatter of reasoning grows faint and the gate to the inner temple swings wide. Joseph Murphy called this a golden doorway, for here the conscious guard is relaxed, and what you impress upon the mind in these moments sinks without resistance into the fertile soil beneath. This is why the minutes before sleep are not to be squandered on idle worry, trivial entertainment, or the replaying of the day's grievances. To do so is to squander the richest moment for transformation, to hand the night watch over to seeds of fear instead of the seeds of faith. The body knows when this state is approaching. The muscles soften, the breath grows slower, the eyelids grow heavy. In this state, the mind is most malleable not because it is weaker, but because it is freer from the rigid control of conscious logic. In the language of the mystic, this is when the veil between the seen and the unseen grows thin. In the language of science, this is the threshold of the theta brainwave state, where suggestion becomes impression, and impression becomes the blueprint for future expression. You may call it what you will, but its effect is the same. A word spoken here is not merely heard, it is received, believed, and acted upon by the subconscious. It is in this holy ground that you must bring your whisper. Let it not be hurried or scattered, but measured, steady, and suffused, with a quiet certainty that you are speaking into the very fabric of your life. Let your tone be like a warm wind over still waters, carrying the message gently but irresistibly into the depths. As you whisper, allow your whole body to sink into the comfort of the bed, not in resignation, but in surrender. Surrender not to illness or fatigue, but to the infinite healing presence that now has unhindered access to every cell and nerve and tissue. This is the moment to feel, not merely to think, to rest in the awareness that the work is already underway, that the healing is not a distant possibility but a present reality unfolding quietly in the night. In time, this practice transforms the very texture of your evenings. Sleep ceases to be a mere physical necessity and becomes a nightly sacrament, a sacred meeting between your conscious intention and the boundless intelligence within. You will find yourself looking forward to it, cherishing the quiet moments when the outer world fades and the inner world opens wide. And when you awaken, you will do so not as one who has simply passed the hours in unconsciousness, but as one who has communed with the divine and returned with renewed life in every fiber of your being. Affirmation to carry forward. In the sacred stillness before sleep, I enter the holy ground where my healing is assured. Before we move deeper into the ritual of nightly healing, let us anchor ourselves in a brief but potent practice of transition, affirmation that acts as both the bridge and the seal between the activities of your waking hours and the divine work of your sleeping hours. Think of it as the lighting of the lamp in the inner sanctuary, the final act that signals to your subconscious, now begins the holy work. This affirmation is not chosen at random. It is crafted to speak directly to the infinite healing presence within, to summon it to full and perfect activity, and to impress upon your mind the certainty that the process is already in motion. The words I give you now are simple, for the subconscious does not require complexity to act, it requires clarity and repetition. The healing presence works through me now. You will notice the present tense works through me now. Not will work at some undefined future point, nor has worked as though the matter were locked in the past. No, the healing is in the eternal present, for the subconscious operates only in the now. To speak it as a present reality is to hand your mind a picture of health as already established, already flowing through you in this very moment. And the phrase works through me reminds you that the healing life is not coming from outside, not being imported from some distant heaven, but is flowing from the infinite source within, circulating through every part of your being. When you speak these words, do so slowly, letting each syllable settle into you like rain soaking into the earth. You may whisper them aloud or speak them silently within, but in either case, let them be accompanied by a feeling of surrender, not as defeat, but as release into perfect trust. Imagine these words as a key turning in a great lock, opening the floodgates of life and allowing a river of light to pour through you. With each repetition, see that light moving through your bloodstream, touching every cell, restoring the original divine blueprint that is already held in the infinite memory of your subconscious. Repeat the affirmation until you feel its truth begin to take root, perhaps 3 times, perhaps a dozen, perhaps more. You will know it has taken hold when the tension drains from your body, when the breath flows freely, when a quiet joy begins to stir in your heart. At that moment, you have crossed the threshold. The conscious mind has yielded its authority. The gate to the subconscious stands open, and your healing whisper this simple yet profound statement is now working in the unseen depths of your being, carried on by the law of belief until it blossoms into visible form. Affirmation to carry forward. The healing presence works through me now, and its perfect work is accomplished in every part of my being. Now, we come to the crafting of the healing whisper itself, the very phrase that will be your nightly seed, sown into the rich and receptive soil of the subconscious mind. This whisper must be a living thing, pulsing with spiritual truth, clothed in words that bypass the watchful censor of the conscious mind and enter directly into the deep places where life itself is shaped. It is not enough to select a pleasant sentiment. The phrase must carry the authority of divine law, the tenderness of love, and the clarity of a simple command that the subconscious can accept without hesitation. After years of guiding souls through the corridors of mental and spiritual healing, I offer you one such phrase, tested by countless victories over illness and infirmity. Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now. Observe its structure. It addresses the whole of your being, not merely the abstract concept of health, but the tangible, living elements of your body. Every cell, nerve, and tissue and oathing is excluded, nothing left untouched. It is comprehensive, like a master architect restoring an entire cathedral stone by stone, beam by beam. By naming these components, you speak to the subconscious with specificity, as though you were a conductor calling each section of the orchestra to play in harmony once more. Then comes the heart of the phrase, is filled with divine life now, not will be, for that pushes the blessing into a forever unreachable future. Not was, for that locks it into memory. Now is the only time the subconscious recognizes. And what fills each part of you? Not merely energy or vitality in the human sense, but divine life, the boundless, perfect, incorruptible essence that is the very nature of God. This is the life that knows no sickness, no decay, no weakness, and when it fills you, it brings with it the pattern of perfection from which you were first made. When you whisper these words, let them roll through you like a current. Feel them as if they were true in this instant, because in the realm of the subconscious they are. The moment you impress them upon your inner mind with feeling, they begin to reshape the unseen conditions that govern the body's functioning. Speak them in a soft, rhythmic cadence, matching the flow of your breath, so that the conscious mind is lulled into stillness and the words slip deeper, deeper, until they rest in the secret place of the Most High within you. This is not the time for strain or effort. It is the time for gentle insistence, for the calm authority of one who knows they are aligning with eternal law. Do not be surprised if, over nights and weeks, the words begin to take on a texture, a flavor, a resonance that you feel in the very cells you address. Many have reported a sense of warmth spreading through the body, or a lightness in the limbs, or a quiet joy bubbling up unbidden. These are signs that the subconscious has accepted your command and is setting about its perfect work. Remember, this whisper is not an attempt to create healing from nothing. It is the act of calling forth what already exists in the infinite storehouse within you, allowing it to flow unhindered into the visible temple of your body. Affirmation to carry forward. Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now, and that life restores me to perfect health. Having chosen the words of your healing whisper, it is now essential to understand how to saturate them with the emotional force that turns mere language into living law. The subconscious mind does not respond to empty syllables spoken without feeling. It responds to the tone, the atmosphere, the emotional vibration that accompanies the words. You could speak the most perfect affirmation in the world, but if it is delivered mechanically, without warmth, without the sense of its truth, it will fall upon the soil of the mind like dry seed cast upon barren ground. But when those same words are spoken with an inner glow, when you clothe them in the garments of love, gratitude, and expectancy, they penetrate deeply, sink roots, and begin to reshape the hidden patterns that govern every function of your body. To achieve this emotional saturation, begin by pausing before you speak your whisper. Let your breath slow and deepen. Close your eyes and turn your attention inward, as though you were listening for the faintest sound in a still room. Then, before you form the first word, summon the feeling that you would have if your healing were already complete. Imagine the freedom in your body, the lightness in your step, the ease in your breath. Let yourself feel the joy of that moment not as a wish, but as a present reality. This is the emotional seedbed into which your words will fall, and the richer it is, the more powerfully they will take root. When you speak, do so as though addressing a beloved friend who has the power to fulfill your request immediately. Indeed, the subconscious is just that. Let your tone be gentle but sure, like one giving a blessing that cannot fail. As you say, "Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now," allow the image to arise, a warm golden light flowing through you, touching every part of your being. See that light moving with purpose, like a river of liquid sunshine, cleansing, nourishing, restoring. Feel its warmth in your chest, its tingling in your fingertips, its steadying presence in your breath. Each repetition of the whisper is a brushstroke painting this picture deeper into the canvas of your mind, until it is no longer imagination but memory, a memory of a truth that has always been. This is what it means to saturate the subconscious with a suggestion. Not to repeat words endlessly, hoping they will somehow force their way in, but to steep them in the fragrance of felt reality until they are irresistible to the inner mind. And once the subconscious accepts the image and the feeling is true, it will call upon all the forces of your being, physical, mental, and spiritual, to express that truth in your waking life. You may not be able to trace the steps by which the healing comes, but you will see its evidence. Just as you do not watch the seed sprout underground, but trust the green shoot to appear in due season. Affirmation to carry forward. I speak my healing words with love, joy, and certainty, and my subconscious accepts them now as my living reality. Breath is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious, the silent messenger carrying the tone of your inner state to every cell in your body. When you align your breathing with your healing whisper, you are no longer simply speaking words, you are weaving those words into the rhythm of life itself. The inhale becomes an act of receiving, the exhale an act of releasing. Together they create a perfect cycle of renewal. Inhale and you draw in the luminous life of God. Exhale and you let go of all tension, fatigue, and obstruction. This simple rhythm, repeated night after night, becomes a bodily sacrament, a living ritual that tells your subconscious exactly what to do. Welcome the new, release the old, restore the balance. To begin, settle yourself comfortably in bed, allowing the weight of your body to sink into the mattress as though the earth itself were holding you. Place one hand lightly upon your chest or abdomen, not to control the breath, but to feel its movement. Inhale slowly through the nose, imagining that you are breathing in a golden light that carries health, strength, and divine vitality. Let this breath fill you from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head, pausing briefly at the top as though savoring the fullness of that life within you. Then, as you exhale through the mouth, imagine that you are releasing all remnants of pain, illness, fear, or fatigue. See them dissolving into nothingness, carried away on the current of your breath. Now, into this sacred rhythm, introduce your whisper. As you inhale, silently or softly say the first half of your affirmation, "Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body." Pause at the peak of the inhale, feeling the completeness of that statement as the light permeates you. Then, As you exhale, complete the phrase. Is filled with divine life now. Feel the release of all resistance as you speak these words out, letting the breath carry them deep into the stillness, where the subconscious receives them without argument. Continue this pattern for several minutes, allowing the breath and the whisper to merge into one seamless flow, until speaking the words feels as natural and inevitable as the tide moving in and out upon the shore. This breathing practice not only calms the nervous system and prepares the body for rest, it also deepens the impression of the affirmation upon the subconscious by tying it to the primal act of life itself. Breath is the first thing you receive when you enter this world, and it will be the last thing you release when you depart. In using it consciously, you harness a force older than thought, older than language, a force the subconscious understands at the most fundamental level. Each night you repeat this cycle, you are training your body and mind to respond to the healing whisper with immediate relaxation, receptivity, and alignment to the divine pattern of health. Affirmation to carry forward. With every breath I receive divine life and release all that is unlike it. My whole being is renewed now. Within you there exists a perfect, original designer, divine blueprint that was impressed upon your being from the moment of your creation. It is the pattern of health, vitality, and harmony conceived by infinite intelligence before a single cell took shape in your mother's womb. This blueprint is not lost, though it may be obscured by years of false beliefs, emotional wounds, or the wear and tear of living out of alignment with spiritual law. Just as a great cathedral weathered by centuries may have its carvings worn and its stones darkened, yet still retains the master plan in the archives from which it was built, so too your body retains the eternal plan for its own perfection. The work of your healing whisper is to call forth that blueprint from the archives of the subconscious and to restore its pattern in every cell and fiber of your being. When you close your eyes before sleep, you may visualize this divine blueprint as a luminous template overlaid upon your physical form. See it as a radiant, perfect version of yourself, every organ functioning flawlessly, every joint moving freely, every system in perfect balance. Imagine that this perfect pattern is composed of light, a shimmering geometry of divine order, glowing brighter than the sun, yet soft and gentle upon your inner vision. With each repetition of your affirmation, every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now. See the light blueprint merging with your body, infusing every part with its flawless design. Where there is distortion or disorder, see it simply dissolve in the presence of this pure pattern, as shadows vanish before the rising dawn. The subconscious responds powerfully to images, for it is the language it understands best. Words are important, yes, but words become far more potent when they are married to a vivid mental picture. This is why a blueprint visualization is so effective. It gives the subconscious a clear, sensory-rich model to work from. You are no longer asking it to guess what health means, you are showing it in detail what to build. And because the subconscious is in constant communication with the body's intelligence, with every cell and system, it immediately begins the work of aligning the physical structure to match the mental image. It may call forth resources you didn't know you had. It may set into motion processes you do not consciously control, immune responses, hormonal balances, cellular regeneration, all working quietly in the background while you sleep. Do not be concerned with how this restoration will take place. That is not your work. Your work is to hold the image steady, to keep the blueprint before the inner eye without wavering, to saturate it with the feeling of already being whole. Just as an architect does not micromanage the stonecutter or the mason, you must trust the infinite mind within you to know exactly how to translate the perfect plan into living reality. With time, persistence, and faith, the outer structure, the body you see in the mirror, will conform to the inner design, and you will walk in the evidence of what you have been whispering in the quiet hours of the night. Affirmation to carry forward. The divine blueprint of my perfect health is now restored in me. Every cell aligns with the pattern of life, light, and wholeness. Let us turn now to a living testimony. For nothing cements the truth of a principle more firmly than seeing it borne out in the experience of another. There was a woman named Evelyn, a quiet soul whose life had been gradually narrowed by the grip of a chronic condition that seemed to drain the very color from her days. For years, she had lived in a cycle of brief improvements followed by crushing setbacks, each one deepening her conviction that she was, in her own words, a fragile person. She had read of healing prayers and affirmations, but treated them as quaint curiosities, pleasant enough to think about, but too simple, too unscientific to address the weight of her suffering. When she came to me, her eyes carried that mixture of longing and resignation I have seen too many times, a hope that wants to believe but has been taught, through disappointment, to temper itself. I told her plainly, "You are giving two sets of instructions to your subconscious. You long for health, yet you identify yourself with sickness. You whisper hope, but you shout fear. It is no wonder the body is confused. It is trying to obey two masters at once." And then I gave her the simplest of assignments. For the next 30 nights, before sleep, she was to lie quietly in bed, place her hand lightly over her heart, breathe slowly, and in a gentle whisper repeat, "Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now." No straining for results. No anxious measuring of progress. Just the quiet planting of that seed in the silence before sleep. The first week, she noticed only that her sleep was deeper and her dreams more vivid. In the second week, she found herself waking with a kind of soft energy that she had not felt in years, no great surge, but a steady current that carried her through the day. By the third week, small discomforts that had been constant companions began to fade without fanfare. The ache in her joints lessened. The heaviness in her limbs lightened. She did not focus on them. She simply continued the nightly whisper, allowing it to become as natural as brushing her teeth. On the 30th night, she told me she felt as though her body and mind were in agreement for the first time in her adult life. "I realized," she said, "that I had been living as two people, the one who wanted to be well and the one who expected to be sick. Now, I am only the one who knows she is being made whole." Over the months that followed, the condition that had once dominated her life receded into a dim memory, replaced by a quiet strength and the conviction that her health was no longer something to be fought for, but something to be expressed from within. Evelyn's story is not an isolated marvel. It is the inevitable result of aligning word, image, and feeling and impressing them upon the subconscious in the state most conducive to acceptance. The whisper before sleep is not magic in the sense of superstition. It is magic in the sense of divine law operating with mathematical certainty when its conditions are met. Her body did not need to be fixed from the outside. It needed to be reminded of the blueprint and given clear, unwavering instructions to follow. And when it received them, it responded with the precision and faithfulness that the infinite built into every cell. Affirmation to carry forward: I am whole, I am restored, I am one with the divine life that renews me now. We must now consider the structure of deliberate practice, for the subconscious thrives on consistency as much as it responds to clarity. A single seed, no matter how perfect, if planted once and forgotten, will never produce a harvest. It is the repeated sowing, the regular watering, the faithful tending that transforms potential into abundance. In the same way, your healing whisper gains strength each time it is spoken with intention, and over a sequence of nights it begins to saturate the subconscious to such a degree that the new pattern becomes inevitable. For this reason, I offer you the 7-night healing program, a simple yet profound framework for impressing the truth of health upon your inner mind until it becomes your living reality. On the first night, you begin by preparing the inner soil. This is not the time for grand declarations or complex rituals. Rather, it is the night to gently introduce your subconscious to the idea that change is coming. Close your eyes before sleep, breathe deeply, and whisper your affirmation. Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now, 10 times. slowly and tenderly, as though speaking to a beloved child. The goal here is not force, but familiarity. You are inviting the subconscious to become acquainted with this new instruction, to hold it lightly in the quiet hours of rest. The second and third nights, you deepen the impression by adding a visual element. As you whisper, see in your mind's eye a warm golden light flowing through your body, touching every part mentioned in your affirmation. This imagery gives your subconscious a blueprint to follow, transforming abstract words into concrete instructions. By the fourth night, the whisper will begin to feel like a habit, and this is when you add the element of emotional saturation. Speak the words as though they were already true, allowing gratitude and relief to well up within you. Feel the release of the old and the joy of the new with each repetition. The fifth night is dedicated to reinforcement throughout the day. At least 3 times, pause in your daily routine to close your eyes for a brief moment and silently repeat the affirmation once or twice. This ensures that by the time you reach the night's practice, your subconscious has been gently reminded of your intention all day long. On the 6th night, you focus on surrender after whispering your affirmation. Rest in complete stillness for several minutes, as though floating on the current of the healing life you have invoked. Let the subconscious take over without interference. On the 7th night, you complete the cycle with a ritual of thanksgiving. Before sleep, write a brief note of gratitude to the infinite healing presence within you, thanking it for the restoration that is already underway. Then, with that feeling of thanks still warm in your heart, speak your affirmation one final time for the week and allow yourself to drift into sleep knowing that the law of belief is at work. When this program is repeated week after week, the cumulative effect is astonishing. The subconscious, once filled with conflicting or destructive patterns, becomes a reservoir of healing power, overflowing into the body as renewed strength, vitality, and balance. Affirmation to carry forward. With each night of practice, my subconscious is more deeply impressed with the truth of my perfect health, and my body reflects that truth now. Even as you devote yourself to the nightly whisper, it is wise to recognize that the subconscious mind does not clock in and out like a laborer whose shift ends with the setting sun. It is always at work, shaping your body and your circumstances in harmony with the instructions it receives, not only in the quiet moments before sleep, but also in the casual thoughts and idle words you speak during the day. If, by night, you plant the seeds of health, yet by day you trample them underfoot with words of complaint, self-pity, or anxiety, you are asking the subconscious to build and demolish in the same breath. For this reason, the practice of integrating mini whispers throughout your waking hours becomes a vital reinforcement of the nightly ritual, ensuring that your inner instructions remain consistent and uninterrupted. These mini whispers need not be elaborate, nor must they always be spoken aloud. The key is that they be sincere, brief, and consistent in their affirmation of the truth you wish to embody. As you walk from one room to another, as you wait for water to boil, as you sit quietly in a moment between tasks, you may softly or silently repeat, "Divine life flows through me now," or "Every cell in my body is rejoicing in perfect health." Such phrases are like small drops of pure water falling steadily upon the same fertile ground. You may not notice the effect of each drop, but over time the soil becomes rich, moist, and ready to yield abundantly. The beauty of these daytime whispers is that they do not require the deep, drowsy state of the nighttime practice to be effective. They function as gentle reminders to your subconscious, keeping its attention anchored to the reality of health. Every time you repeat a mini whisper, you are in effect saying to the inner mind, "This is the truth I choose. This is the pattern I am reinforcing." In doing so, you prevent the intrusion of contradictory suggestions and maintain the momentum built by your nightly ritual. Imagine a sculptor returning to his work throughout the day, making small, precise adjustments to the form he is creating. Each touch, though minor, shapes the final masterpiece. Over days and weeks, you will find that these mini whispers become a natural part of your inner dialogue. The old reflex of rehearsing symptoms or complaining about discomfort will be replaced by a quiet, almost automatic turning toward words of life and renewal. You will catch yourself in moments of stillness, breathing more deeply, standing more upright, feeling a current of strength within you that was not there before. This is the subconscious at work, aligning the body to match the truth it has been hearing hour after hour, day after day. And because your message has been consistent morning, noon, and night, the subconscious has no reason to doubt it, no conflicting blueprint to follow. Affirmation to carry forward. With every thought and whisper, I reinforce the truth of divine life in me, and my body responds with health and joy. It is vital, as you walk this path of healing through the whisper and its reinforcements, that you guard against the subtle yet potent act of neutralization. Many people begin their practice with great enthusiasm, only to see its momentum weaken because they allow opposing currents of thought and speech to undo their work. The subconscious mind, though vast in its capabilities, is exact in its obedience set, will not argue, it will not interpret your contradictions. It will simply take the dominant pattern you feed it and work to express that. If by night you impress it with the vision of radiant health, but by day you rehearse your ailments in conversation, speak of your symptoms to every acquaintance, or dwell on the fear of relapse, you are essentially erasing the imprint you so carefully made. This is not to suggest that you should deny or ignore the present state of your body, but rather that you choose not to give power to the conditions you seek to change. There is a profound difference between acknowledging a fact and magnifying it. The wise healer acknowledges the current state in passing, as one might glance at a cloudy sky while knowing that the sun still shines above it, and then returns the mind's gaze to the desired truth. This is the discipline of avoiding neutralization, maintaining the inner climate in which the seed of health can grow without being uprooted by doubt or smothered by fear. One of the most common ways people neutralize their nightly whisper is through idle talk. Especially in moments when they feel vulnerable or in need of sympathy. It is tempting, when asked, "How are you feeling today?" to recount every ache, every twinge, every detail of the ailment, as though reciting it could bring relief. But such recitations, spoken with emotion, are powerful affirmations in themselves, affirmations of the very condition you wish to dissolve. The subconscious cannot distinguish between an intentional affirmation and a complaint voiced with feeling. It accepts both as orders to be fulfilled. Thus, each time you lament your state aloud, you are in effect giving your subconscious the instruction to keep that state alive. To avoid neutralization, adopt a sacred selectiveness in your words. Train yourself to answer questions about your health with phrases that affirm the truth you are building. I am improving every day. Or, the life of God is at work in me now. These responses neither deny your present experience nor reinforce it. They simply turn the mind, both yours and your listeners, toward the direction of healing. By holding your speech in alignment with your nightly whisper, you ensure that the subconscious receives a consistent, unbroken stream of instruction, day and night, until the new pattern is firmly established. Remember, the power of the whisper lies not only in the words themselves, but in the harmony of all your words, thoughts, and feelings. When they all point toward the same truth, they create a momentum that no opposing force can withstand. By guarding against neutralization, you keep your healing current pure, allowing it to flow without obstruction into every part of your being. Affirmation to carry forward. I speak only words that agree with the health I claim, and my subconscious magnifies this truth in my body now. Sound is one of the oldest carriers of suggestion known to humanity, for it has the power to slip past the barriers of reason and stir the deeper layers of the mind. Long before the written word, the spoken chant, the rhythmic drum, and the soft lullaby were used to imprint ideas, soothe the body, and open the soul to unseen realities. The subconscious mind is especially responsive to tone and rhythm, and when these elements are harnessed deliberately, they can amplify the potency of your nightly whisper. This is why the use of music or sound as a carrier of suggestion can be a profound aid to your healing practice. It creates an environment in which the whisper is not only spoken but felt, resonating through the nervous system and bathing the mind in a climate of receptivity. When you prepare for your whisper before sleep, you may find it helpful to choose a soundscape that complements the rhythm and intention of your words. Soft instrumental music, gentle ambient tones, or recordings of nature rainfall, ocean waves, wind in the trees can all serve to lull the conscious mind toward that drowsy threshold where the subconscious listens most attentively. The key is that the sound should not distract or pull your attention outward. It should act as a cushion for your thoughts, a steady current carrying your words deeper into the inner mind. As your whisper rides upon this current, it becomes less like a statement and more like a song of truth that the subconscious accepts without resistance. There is a special resonance created when sound and suggestion are united. The steady rhythm of soft music can act like the swing of a pendulum in hypnosis, guiding the brain into slower, more receptive states. Within this state, the whisper you repeat takes on an almost ceremonial quality. It is no longer simply you speaking to yourself, but a sacred utterance accompanied by a choir of tones that seem to come from beyond you. Some practitioners even find that their chosen affirmation begins to align naturally with the beat or pulse of the background sound, creating a gentle repetition that continues in the mind even after the words are no longer spoken aloud. You may also experiment with recording your own voice, speaking the affirmation in a soft rhythmic tone, then playing it back quietly as you drift into sleep. Hearing your own voice calm, confident, filled with faith can reinforce the sense that the words are already an accepted truth within you. Over nights and weeks, this repeated pairing of sound and suggestion builds a strong associative link in the subconscious. The music or tone itself becomes a trigger for the state of healing you have cultivated, so that even without the whisper, the sound recalls the feeling of wholeness and renewal. When the whisper is carried on a wave of sound, the conscious mind has less opportunity to interrupt or second-guess the message. The tones act like a gentle guard at the gate, keeping stray thoughts at bay while the affirmation slips quietly into the depths. In this way, music and sound do not replace the whisper, but rather magnify its reach, embedding it more deeply into the rhythms of your mind and body. Affirmation to carry forward: my healing words ride upon waves of sound into the depths of my being, where they are received and fulfilled in perfect harmony. Once the whisper has been spoken, the image formed, and the emotion infused, there remains one final and crucial act for the night: sealing the envelope. This is the point at which you release the affirmation entirely into the keeping of your subconscious mind, trusting it to carry out the work without further interference. Too often, people make the mistake of peeking into the soil, so to speak, uttering their healing words and then immediately allowing doubt, impatience, or over-analysis to unearth what they have planted. Sealing the envelope is your conscious decision to let the message go, to hand it over to the infinite healing presence within, confident that it will be delivered and fulfilled. Visualize this act as clearly as you can. Imagine your whispered affirmation as a beautiful handwritten letter, penned with care and folded gently into an envelope of golden light. See yourself addressing it to the infinite healing presence or divine subconscious mind, and then in your mind's eye, place it into a mailbox of radiant white or hand it directly to a trusted messenger, perhaps an angel, perhaps a figure of light, who assures you it will reach its destination without delay. Once you have done this, the matter is settled. You do not follow the messenger. You do not stand at the mailbox wondering if it will be delivered. You turn away and rest, knowing the delivery is already in motion. This mental ritual serves two purposes. First, it marks a clear boundary in your own consciousness between the act of impressing the mind and the act of resting in faith. Second, it communicates to the subconscious that no further conscious interference will be given. The subconscious thrives in the absence of contradiction. When you release the message fully, you create a pure channel for its expression, untainted by the back-and-forth currents of hope and fear. It is as if you have sent a signal into the deepest chamber of your being and locked it in place, where it will continue to radiate its instruction throughout your body and affairs until the result appears. The act of sealing the envelope also deepens your trust in the law of mind. It shifts your role from controller to co-creator, from one trying to force the outcome to one who collaborates with an intelligence infinitely greater than the conscious self. In this way, the nightly whisper becomes not only a technique for healing but a practice of surrender, cultivating a peace that remains with you long after the lights are out. You begin to feel, even before the evidence is visible, that something has already shifted in your favor. And that feeling, resting in the quiet confidence that it is done, is itself a powerful magnet for the fulfillment of your desire. Affirmation to carry forward. I release my healing word into the infinite with trust and peace, knowing it is received, acted upon, and fulfilled now. Now we step into one of the most transformative elements of this entire process, the creation of a multi-sense healing movie that plays upon the inner screen of your mind before sleep. Words alone are powerful, yes, but when they are woven together with vivid imagery, felt sensations, and even imagined sounds, they form an impression upon the subconscious so deep and rich that it cannot help but seek expression in the physical world. Your mind, after all, does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. The same neural pathways are engaged, the same biochemical messengers are released. By crafting a scene of complete health and living within it nightly, you invite your body to cooperate with that reality until it becomes your normal state. Begin by deciding on a simple, joyful scene in which you are living in full health. It might be a walk along the seashore, the waves curling at your feet as you move easily and freely, your lungs drawing in the salt-kissed air without strain. It could be playing with your children or grandchildren, feeling their laughter ripple through you as easily as your own. It could be dancing, gardening, climbing a hill at sunrise, whatever fills your heart with the unmistakable sense of being alive, strong, and unencumbered. Let this scene be personal and emotionally resonant, for the subconscious responds most powerfully to that which carries emotional charge. Once the scene is chosen, enter it completely. Close your eyes and imagine it in detail. The colors, the textures, the temperature of the air, the scent that lingers, the sounds that surround you. Feel your muscles working in perfect harmony, your breathing effortless, your movements fluid. Allow yourself to feel the joy, the gratitude, the sheer pleasure of being whole and well. Let these feelings swell within you until they seem to radiate from every pore. As you dwell in this state, repeat your whisper softly. Every cell, nerve, and tissue of my body is filled with divine life now. The words and the images merge, each reinforcing the other, until they form a unified instruction to your subconscious. This is who I am. This is my reality. Remain in your healing movie for several minutes, allowing the details to become sharper and the feelings stronger. The goal is not to rush or force the process, but to savor it, to let the experience become so immersive that when you finally drift into sleep, you carry it with you into your dreams. In the deep recesses of the subconscious, this movie will replay itself again and again, impressing its pattern upon every level of your being. And in time, just as a film can be projected onto a physical screen, the healing scene you have cherished within will be projected into the circumstances of your waking life. Affirmation to carry forward. I live in the vivid reality of my perfect health, and my body joyfully expresses the life I see and feel within. Once you have built the richness of your multi-sense healing movie, the next step is to employ the looping technique here, deliberate, rhythmic repetition of that scene in the moments before sleep, ensuring that it becomes the dominant impression carried into the deeper layers of your mind through the night. The subconscious responds not only to intensity but also to repetition, for each return to the scene strengthens the neural and emotional imprint, making it more familiar, more real, and ultimately more likely to be expressed. This is why one fleeting image, however vivid, cannot compare to an image revisited and relived multiple times in the fertile twilight between wakefulness